Hello, hello, hello. Welcome to or back to my channel. If you're new, welcome to. And if you've been here before, cool, you're daring to click on a video again from me. You must be a glutton for punishment. I'm only teasing. Welcome. My name is Angel and thank you for clicking, stopping and watching. So today I really fancy doing a video about how I bond with my decks, maybe like a new deck in my collection or possibly even an existing deck that I haven't worked with for a while. So I'm going to show the process I go through to kind of bond with my decks and get to know them a bit better, I thought. Okay, so I thought a good deck to work through and to show an example of is the Intuitive Night Goddess Tarot. And this was a tarot deck that I got as a late Christmas present. I haven't done a duck dialogue. I haven't done a deck dialogue. That wasn't easy to say. Yet, which I need to kind of, sort myself out and do, because I'm really hoping to use this deck for a new moon reading, which is obviously coming up very, very soon. So let's move this out of the way. So the first thing I do when I get a new deck, I look through the cards. Now, if it's a new deck, obviously the cards are generally in order. If it's a second-hand deck, for instance, if I bought a deck from, for example, eBay, then I'll put all the cards back in order and then I will look through the cards. Now, I do that because this deck, for instance, this is the Earth Wisdom Oracle. I purchased this from eBay and the cards were not in order, obviously, when I got them because they were second-hand. And when I put the cards back in order, there was one missing. So that's kind of good to know, it's just good to know. So that's why I do that. I tend to put the cards in the order if it's a second-hand deck. And if it's a new deck, then I like to go through the cards just to double check there's no damage to the cards. I have quite a few decks in my collection. I've been collecting, or not collecting, I'm not a collector, I wouldn't say, but I do have quite a few decks I've purchased myself. And the only deck that I opened that was brand new that had a damaged card was the Queer Tarot. So I think it's always a good idea just to go through and just double check that all your cards are in order, as in everything is, as it should be and none of the cards are damaged. So that is my first process. I look through all of the cards just to get acquainted with the artwork. Once I've done that, I tend to put the whole deck back in the box with the guidebook, and then I let it sit on my witchy space for a whole evening or a whole night. And I pop some selenite on the deck, on the box. I've got a few of these chunky selenite crystals, and so it sits in the box with the guidebook on my witchy area for a night or possibly 2 nights, depending on when I can come back and do the rest of the ritual or the rest of the process with the new deck. So once that's done, once that's been sitting on my altar for a while, I then tend to get the guidebook out. And I tend to look through the guidebook and just, make any notes of any card name changes, for instance, or anything that, especially jumps out to me from the guidebook that I might need to note when I start doing my deck dialogue or my deck interview. Yeah, so that's that. I also find edging my deck a really great way to bond with it. Now, I edged this one a few nights ago. It's obviously edged in black, which I'm really, really happy with. This is the mass market version of this deck, by the way. So this one was unedged out of the box. So that's that. Once that's done, I then cleanse the deck with incense. So even though I've already cleansed it with the selenite, I even cleanse it with incense. And sorry, just to go back to putting these cards in order, if you have seen any of my previous videos, you'll know that I tend to do that with all decks that go out of rotation. I put the deck back in order to kind of reset the deck and to cleanse it. I feel it's a really good practice for me. Hence the reason that I put these cards in order if they aren't already in order. Oh, I feel like I'm babbling. Let's move along to the incense. So, for instance, this is cedar, which I gathered myself and I bound myself. So what I do is I light, for instance, the cedar bundle, and then I just cleanse the deck with the bundle, with the smoke from the cedar. If I don't use cedar, I might use Palo Santo. Yeah, I generally go with what feels right intuitively, I must say. Yeah, it's whatever feels right for that deck on that day. So once I've done that, I then like to sound cleanse my deck as well. Now I do have a few bells that I use. I have, for instance, something like this. Otherwise, I do tend to use these. Warning for a loud noise now. And I tend to sound cleanse in threes. So I tend to hold my chimes over my deck. So I've even been known to use my, what's it called? My mortar and pestle. Pesto. What's it called? Mortar and it begins with P. Oh, I'll put the word on the screen. I can't think of the word. And anyway, that's made out of like oh, the words are totally escaping me. I'm going to show you. Bear with me. Okay, I'm back. Okay, so I even sometimes use this. I've shown this before in my thrifted witchy finds. Oi. And sometimes I even pop my cards in here. Warning for loud noise. And sound cleanse in here as well. It is a pestle. Oh Lord, I can't speak today. A mortar and pestle. I'm going to put the word on here. But I do even use this as like almost like a singing bowl. And so I use this to cleanse crystals and sometimes decks and herbs. Yeah, all different things. So this is a really good item that has a double use as far as I'm concerned. Okay, let's pop this out the way. That's quite heavy. I think it's made out of cast iron, but don't quote me on that. It's very, very heavy. Anywho, so once that's done, then I like to shuffle my deck. Now, I don't have a specific number of times that I shuffle my decks. I just shuffle it until it feels right. That could be overhand. It could be riffle shuffling. It just depends what feels right on that day for the deck. Let's give it a couple more shuffles. If you have a beverage, you might want to take a bit of a sip. If you've got somebody close to you, you might want to mingle a wee second with that person. Okay. Let's give this a bit of a shuffle a couple more times. Okay, so, and I tend to shuffle the cards face up and face down. That's just me personally. Once I've shuffled them, given them a really good shuffle, and they feel ready to be used, then I do a bit of a prayer or intention over the cards. Now, I'm right-handed, but this just feels right for me. And if this is something that you fancy doing yourself, I would suggest just doing whatever feels right for you personally. So I place the cards in my left hand. I hold my right hand over the cards, and I say something, for example, may these cards be used for my best intention, for the best intention of others, for anyone who draws from this deck, for my greater good, for the greater good of all, harming none. So mote it be. And then I tend to draw my protection symbol, which I'm not going to do here, my protection symbol on the back of the cards 3 times. That's just what I do. And it kind of feels, the whole intention, saying the intention over the cards, feels quite I don't know, it just feels right for me. I don't always say the same thing. Sometimes I use different wording. It just depends on the deck and depends on the day. So let's just give this one more shuffle, and then we're going to start on the deck dialogue or the deck interview. Now, I have quite a few questions that I tend to ask my decks. I always bring forward my journal so that I can journal on the cards that I pull and on the intuitive hints that I feel I get. Let's just do that. Okay, so the first question that I tend to ask any deck is, please describe yourself. Please show me a card that represents this deck. Now, I tend to shuffle until I get a jumper. I personally like jumpers or cards that blatantly want to, come away and out of the deck. So I take this as a card that wants to come out of the deck. So this is the Wayfarer. This is the 6 of the Major Arcana, which is the Lovers. Now, this is really interesting. The day that I got this card, I was going through the cards, and I had seen the Wayfarer once before in another deck, which is a Compendium of Witches deck. And I pulled that tarot card, that oracle card. I pulled the Wayfarer from that deck. And then this totally caught my eye when I was going through these cards, that there was also a Wayfarer in this deck. And I was like, oh, wow, you don't see that very often. So the Wayfarer, as far as I'm aware, or as I've understood it, means a person that goes on a journey by foot. That's what that means. So this is very interesting. I'm not really sure what I would get from this, to be honest. I would usually go with intuitive hits. And if it was the Lover's card, which, 6 in the Major Arcana is usually the Lover's card, then I would kind of know where this was leading. But because it's the Wayfarer, I think we need to kind of go to the guidebook. Generally, I would, look at the image, see what intuitive hits I got, journal about those, and then go to the guidebook. But today, because it's the Wayfarer, I'm gonna go to the guidebook straight away. Actually, this is a bit unprecedented. This was not how I was expecting this video to go, but we're gonna roll with it. Let's have a look here. Number 6, the Wayfarer. Traditionally, the Lovers. A goddess ventures alone on her journey and comes to a crossroads. Each path is illuminated by 6 candles, totaling 12 in reference to the astrological houses and the cycles we go through. A Wayfarer is a journeyer, often on foot, and this means you are on a path where it's okay to go your own pace. The Wayfarer's right arm holds apples, denoting knowledge, and her left has a snake wrapped around it, referencing the union of Adam and Eve, but also how the snake gets an underserved negative reputation. This card offers the reader a choice to meditate on ideas of self-love. The Lovers are the union of separated parts, and as a unit asks us to find the wholesome of self, or ourself, with the universe Jupiter, known as the guru or teacher planet. In astrology, Jupiter oversees our soul journeys and the paths we take to discover our spiritual selves. Okay, so we have another page full of description here, which I'm not going to read, but the keywords were love, harmony, values, balance, self-love, and choice. So that was really interesting. This obviously, from reading that, this totally gives me a self-love, a self-love journey vibe. Putting yourself first, and maybe making your own choices and going your own way. So that's really interesting. I really like that. So as mentioned, I would totally usually go with the whole intuition hits that I got first, or the intuitive hits that I got first, and journal about those, and then I would go to the guidebook. But because this is the Wayfarer, wasn't really sure where we were going with that. Anyway, so that's the first question. I do tend to look at the bottom card as well. So sometimes you pull a card and you think, yeah, no, this doesn't, no, or wait, let me think what I'm trying to say here. Sometimes I totally get the vibe that the bottom card is also relevant to this card and I should read it. And other times I get the vibe that I don't need to read it, so it's not relevant. So I just kind of go with my intuition there. If it feels like this, the bottom card should be read, I read it and take notes about it. And if not, then I don't. Okay, so that's that. Okay, I'm not going to pull a card for every question, but I am going to go through all the questions that I ask my deck. So the next question I ask is, what is the guiding energy of this deck? And it's the same again. I tend to shuffle the deck, wait until a jumper or a card, points out or, peeks out of the deck, and I choose that card. I turn it over. I take my intuitive hits on the card, journal about those, and then double check in the guidebook to see what resonates for me. The next question, how do you speak your messages? So for instance, are they poetic? Are they blunt? Same again, I shuffle, wait for a jumper or a card that wants out the deck, pull the card, intuitive hits on the card, what are the messages I get intuitively, and then I go back to the guidebook. The next question, how should I listen? So for instance, intuitively, should I use the guidebook? Same procedure again, shuffle, wait for the jumper, take out the card, and journal about it. The next question, what are your strengths? The next question is my favourite question. What readings do you most enjoy? I really enjoy that question. That totally gives me an idea of what I'm going to use the deck for if I haven't already purchased the deck for a specific practice in mind. So I really, really, wait with bated breath almost for that question and that card to be drawn. The next question I usually ask is, what are your strengths? No, that's totally wrong, isn't it? I've already said that question. You can see what professional I am. Totally unprofessional. Okay, the next question I ask is, how do you work with shadow? Really, really enjoy that question as well, I have to say. Some decks you get a total shadow deck vibe with. I do it in any case. I use the what's my deck that I use for shadow work? The Dreamkeeper's Tarot. I know that totally gives me a shadow work vibe. And some decks you kind of what am I trying to say here? Yeah, I just feel that some decks, they just kind of lend themselves to shadow work, I feel. I feel like I'm babbling now. I'm moving on to the next question. Why did you find me? What can you teach me? How can we best work together? In what way could your guidance be misunderstood? How can I use your guidance for the greater good? This is another one of my really favourite questions. Which, if any, of my spiritual team, deities or ancestors can you channel or connect me to? I really like that question. Please show me a card in the deck that represents me. I like that question as well. And then please show a card to represent our relationship, so the relationship between me and the deck. And then the final question is, please show me a card or please show me a message that I need to see right now. So once I've done that and I've journaled all about those cards that I've pulled, then I tend to go back to the guidebook once more. And if there are any spreads in the guidebook, then I tend to pick one spread from the guidebook, and I also pull some cards for that spread as well, to kind of help me even more to get to know the deck. Once that's done, it's kind of, free forward. It's, working with the deck and just doing it and jumping in and diving in and working with it. I tend to find that by doing this process, that the deck kind of shows me what it wants, or not wants to be used for, but what I can use the deck for if I don't already have a specific practice in mind as mentioned. So yeah, that was that. I have mentioned that I do tend to edge my decks if I don't already come out of the box edged. And that is a great way to bond with the deck, I feel. I have also modified certain decks, obviously before edging, and that's also another great way to bond with the deck, I feel. Yeah, so that's pretty much that. What say you? Do you do any kind of deck dialogue or deck interviews with the decks that come into your collection? I obviously do the same procedure with decks I haven't used for a long time, just to just to reconnect with the deck. I do this whole process again. And when I've done my deck dialogues, I tend to write them in my journal. Now I always use, I don't have any fancy schmancy journals at all. I always have these kind of journals, which are bog standard, cheap as chips, no frills, black journals. They've got this kind of elastic, what's this called, like cord to hold the book together. And I always write in the back of all my journals my questions, and then I even complete all my deck dialogues or deck interviews at the back of my journal, so that I know if I need to reference back to any interviews later on, I always know that I can just look back at any journal, look at the back of the book, and I'll always find the deck dialogues or interviews. Now you might be wondering why I don't have a specific journal just for deck dialogues and interviews, and that would be a great question. But I don't know the answer to that, so I can't give you an answer, unfortunately. But it's a great thought. Yeah. So I think that's pretty much that. If I haven't forgotten anything, I don't think I have. I think I've pretty much said all I need to say. Going back to you, what do you cleanse with crystals? Do you cleanse with incense? Do you sound cleanse? Do you cleanse by the moon? I have done that actually previously. I have cleansed by the moonlight. Let me know in the comments. I'll be really interested to know. What's your process for when you bring a new deck into your collection, or you're trying to reconnect with an existing deck? Yeah, all that's left to say is have a lovely morning, afternoon, or evening, wherever you are in the world. Take care, and I hope to see you again next time. Toodaloo!